Miles Davis, Dr. Harry Edwards, Jimmy Connors, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, all successful products of East St. Louis. Well, you can add Cal's men's head basketball coach to the list. As we continue our coverage of Black History Month, we show you how Cuonzo Martin's character can be defined by one word.
There were a couple of guys that I grew up with like brothers were exposed to the other side.
Once you shut that door, the war is outside, but not in here. Not in here.
They called it The Hole, a housing project in East St. Louis, one of the most poverty-stricken and dangerous cities in the country. But for Cuonzo Martin, it's home.
For any kid that grew up in your hometown, your neighborhood, his family, friends, even though we grew up in a project housing, I mean, you didn't understand what that meant growing up in that environment.
Inside our household was unconditional love, laughter, but once they go out, it's a different world, you know. And all I could do is pray that, you know, come back safe and sound. As a single mother, you know, as a young single mother on top of that, you know, not knowing how to boil water, let alone take care of 4 kids. I knew I had to teach my kids everything, every possible thing I knew.
Probably the strongest person I know to this day. She didn't give up. She found a way. Let's try to make it work. Try your best. She wasn't built on excuses.
While some of his friends fell victim to the street life, Cuonzo was focused on making a name for himself, one that would represent his hometown in a positive light. He quickly realized sports would be the way.
I carved out a path and I said, this is what I need to do in order to be successful. But I didn't talk loud about it, just stay on the straight and narrow. I was a guy that played sports, that's who I was. People identified me as a basketball player.
That vision propelled him to a successful basketball career in high school, college, and the NBA. But in November of 1997, now a husband and a father, he was blindsided while playing overseas in Italy.
I just felt so fatigued. I felt like I was drained after every game. We had a practice, I ran down the court, I got to half court, I just passed out.
Cuonzo, along with his wife and 3-month-old son, rushed home, and upon arriving back in the States, immediately went to the hospital.
I just remember that the attending physician said, in a very serious tone, he said, you know what, I don't know if you're going to die.
The doctors found a mass in Cuonzo's chest the size of a softball. He was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a life-threatening form of cancer. He was only 26 at the time.
It was probably the toughest thing I've ever heard. Even growing up in East St. Louis, the things I saw, things I went through, it's probably the toughest thing that you could ever hear when somebody says it's life-threatening. The hardest thing for me at going through all that was to actually call my mom and tell her.
That was the hardest call. It was really, second, when I think, that was the hardest call. But he was so positive. He just didn't know I was just breaking, but I had to stay strong for the sake of my baby. To see him from like 2:30, and then when I flew to see him in the hospital like 100-something, no hair, no nothing, oh. That was deep. That was, excuse me. That was devastating. You feel hopeless as a mother. What can I do? What would I do if something happened to him? There's no tomorrow for me.
During a 4.5-month span, Cuonzo underwent several rounds of chemotherapy treatments. The once elite athlete couldn't even lift a toddler.
Josh, he got to a point where he started to crawl a little bit. It's like I couldn't even pick him up. I was just so exhausted. It was tough.
I hated to see him that way. I hated to see him weak. I hated to see him in that condition.
When I went to the oncology office every week, probably started out 27 people. I think my last treatment might have been 9 people. All I said in going through that when I prayed to God, allow me to see Josh turn 18.
Now a junior in high school, Josh will turn 18 in August. And Cuonzo, now 43, has been in remission for 17 years.
I wasn't Superman, it was God's will. No magic tricks to it. I was just blessed to fight through it.
We went through that maybe to help build our relationship, help bring us stronger, and then prepare us for all the things that would come in the future.
That future would be in coaching. Although his playing career was cut short, Cuonzo has found success on the sideline. The kid from the hole has overcome the toughest of circumstances. He's done so by leaning on the no excuses mentality instilled by his mother and the strength that was forged from his hometown.
People come out of there, they're fighters. They know how to battle. They know how to go through something. They've been through something. Like I tell our players all the time, in order to get something, you got to go through something. And I truly believe that.
Tough. That's the definition of Cuonzo Martin. Fallon Smith, Comcast SportsNet.